So good day everyone, and welcome to another Warframe video. So in today's video I would like to talk about a secondary weapon which I started recently using and enjoying. The name of the weapon is the Pox, and it's an infested style secondary weapon which kind of acts like a gas grenade. Now the reason I looked into this weapon is over the course of playing this game for many years, I've been using the standard same old secondary weapons that I've always used. The Vapor Merlock, the Lex Prime, the Sonicor, the Atmos, and a few others. And I started getting interested in maybe looking for another unique weapon. It didn't need to be a really hard-hitting weapon since many of these weapons I already had were such weapons, and so I just wanted to find something that was quite unique in its characteristics. Now during the posting of some of these videos, there were comments by many players, including somebody like Brian Holbrook, who mentioned that the Pox was actually a very good secondary weapon, especially for status purposes. And since I was looking for a good status weapon, I decided to take a look into it. Now as mentioned, the Pox is a secondary weapon, and as you can see here from what Mag is holding, it is definitely an infested style weapon. In fact, it's a seriously ugly weapon, and that may be one of the reasons why I never got it during the release of the Silver Grove quest when this weapon came out. However, as ugly as it is a good weapon, and one of the really nice things about it is you only require a mastery ranking of 6 to get it. And so even early players can get it, and for an early level weapon, it has some seriously strong capabilities. Now the Pox is an elemental style weapon, so it doesn't have the standard impact, puncture, or slash damage. What it does have is toxin damage. So like any of the other elemental style weapons, you have to consider this when you try using it during the battles. Of course, this is especially the case when you're modding, so although the Pox can use the general all-purpose mods like Hornet Strike or Lethal Torrent, it doesn't use any of the base physical damage mods. Instead, you will have to utilize the elemental damage mods to be able to make this weapon effective. Now in addition, this weapon has a seriously pathetic critical chance value of only 1%, so you should never build this weapon up for critical damage. However, it does have a seriously nice value of 35% for its status chance, so this makes her a really good weapon for any status type build. Finally, the Pox is a throwing style weapon, so it's similar to the Kunai or the Hiku or the Despair. And so if you're not a fan of these types of weapons, then the Pox may not be for you. Also, it has a relatively slow flight speed, so you do have to be a little bit careful when you throw this weapon. Now what makes this weapon so interesting is upon impact, the Pox creates these gas clouds that deal 15 toxin damage to any enemy nearby for 4 seconds. The cloud also guarantees a toxin proc. But in addition to that, if you mod the Pox to a different elemental, then you have the status chance percentage of proccing to that elemental. So this gives an area effect that is very good for any crowd type of situation. Okay, so as an example, let's take a frame like Mag and have her go up against 5 level 100 ancient healers and see how she does. And what's interesting is this weapon works quite well for Mag because of the fact that she can use Magnetize to bring all the enemy into one location. And after doing that, just proccing them with the Pox can get rid of level 100 ancients relatively quickly, as you can see. Now, of course, the problem with these types of situations of simulations is that you hardly ever have 5 ancients, even at level 100, standing conveniently in one location for Mag to magnetize. So let's try something else where she has to take on 20 ancient healers on level 100 again, but they're all spread out in different parts of the arena. and she's only allowed to use the Pox again just to test out the weapon, which is again unrealistic, but at least it'll give us a chance to see whether she can kill all 20 of them with the Pox. Situation, the outcome is not as clear because it all depends upon what happens during the battle, but of course you still see that the Pox is a relatively capable weapon, being able to take out some high level ancients, which are not really Mag's strong points, and yet she still is doing relatively well. Considering that all she's doing is using Magnetize and that one single weapon. So long as you continue to have the weapon and you don't run out of ammo and Mag can continue to Magnetize, then this actually turns out to be a relatively good weapon for her, because she does have the ability to gather a lot of enemy into one location. Now of course Mag is not the most tankiest frame in the world, so you do have to be careful with the enemy, but again, if you can use Magnetize and take advantage of it, then you could even take out enemies that are this high a level using just the Pox. And I think she's done. So yeah, not as pretty as the previous round, but yeah, it still worked. Okay, so this time let's try Mag out with an enemy that she does fairly poorly at usually, and that's of course a level 100 heavy gunner, and let's put them all over the place as before and have 20 of them. And so this is not a good situation for her because she doesn't do well against Grenade, and she does terrible against projectile weapons because she only has shields. But in this situation, she has to be a lot more creative with her Magnetize, and she has to have a bubble that's large enough that if she stands inside the bubble but away from the center, then of course she can avoid all the enemy's bullets. And she can move from one bubble to the other. The most important thing is she needs a weapon that can take out the enemy that's inside the bubble relatively quickly. And as you know, the Grenade Heavy Gunner has a really high armor rating, so if you don't have a weapon with a really good corrosive proc, you're gonna be in trouble. Luckily, the Pox is exactly that, with a very high status level and the gas cloud, so it turns out to be a really good weapon under this sort of situation. Okay, so now Mag isn't the only frame that can benefit from this sort of weapon, so somebody like Loki can also find use for this sort of weapon. Now in this case he's going stealth, and then he uses the corrosive proc of the Pox to get rid of the enemy's armor. Now in this case he does have a high damage primary, so I gave him a Sancti Tigris, and what he does is he literally gets rid of their armor using the Pox and then blows them away with the shotgun. So this does show that of course you're not constrained to using the Pox as your only weapon, and if you stack it with another high damage weapon, the Pox can turn out to be really useful, because of course as good as the Sancti Tigris is, it has a very difficult time getting rid of the armor of a high level heavy gunner unless you have a really strong status weapon. And again, the Pox is exactly that, so it can get rid of the armor really quickly. It melts the gunner's armor really quickly, and then once it's done, the Tigris just blows them away. Now of course Loki can continue to stay in stealth mode. So this last gunner will show you just how fast the Pox can take out a heavy gunner's armor. So there you go. And now he just blows them away with the Tigris. Actually, he may not have needed the shotgun in that situation. So one more time, let's see how fast the Pox can get rid of the armor. There you go. So blow it away now. Blow the enemy away. Okay, so he's done. So again, yeah, I mean, the Pox alone doesn't have to be the only situation, and with Loki, if you have a really good high powered primary, the Pox becomes a really useful secondary. Okay, so taking a quick look at the mods that I used, again, since the Pox is a very high status weapon, I put in a lot of status mods just to bring the status chance all the way up to 100, and then of course basically got different combinations of elemental damage depending upon what sort of enemy I may use. So in this case it would be gas, and what I put in is 3 status mods as well as 1 high elemental mod, and I do have this Riven mod, but I'm not sure if it's really advantaged since its main purpose is to increase the status duration. However, it might be better to just put in another elemental damage mod to increase the power. I also have one for corrosive, especially for the Grenadiers, and that's what I use for the heavy gunners. The most important thing I think is for all of these I'm keeping the status percentage at 100, and the final one I have is magnetic and gas for Corpus. So these are the 3 combinations I have. Again, I have no idea if these are really the best mods to use for this particular purpose, but those were the ones that I've tried out, and so far they've worked out okay for me. So at least for my case, that's what I'll probably continue to use. Okay, so 2 additional points to take note of. First, the total ammunition capacity that you have for this weapon is only a measly 20 rounds, so you only have 20 rounds of Pox at any given time to use, and this can become a significant problem for anybody who tries to utilize the Pox as their main weapon in any given battle. And so you do have to become a little bit more creative in how you use this weapon if you decide to use it as a primary source of ammunition. The way I've tried to get over a lot of this problem is to use the carrier, and of course when you do that, ammo case gives you the ability to carry 25 rounds rather than 20 rounds of this ammunition, and in addition to that, of course, vacuum helps you acquire more pistol rounds. So the way I do it is, of course, by killing more enemy, you gather more ammunition, and you keep on replenishing as you go along. But even then, you do have to be careful about how many rounds you have. Now the second notable point is that this is clan tech, which of course means that if you decide to build this, then the blueprints are only available through a clan's research facility. So if you are not in a clan, then this makes it very difficult to build the weapon. In fact, it's almost impossible to build the weapon, and so this does limit people to the access of the blueprint, and you may end up having to buy it with platinum if you're not in a clan. Now, Loki and Mag aren't the only frames that can benefit from this sort of weapon. From what I've heard, Sharon works really well, or this works really well with Sharon, in that its area status effect works really well and complements her Spore ability. And of course this weapon goes quite well with Nidus because he can throw a couple of these into his larva every time he catches a bunch of enemy, and of course it will affect all of the enemy in there with its status effect, thus making it easier to kill. This was the method that Brian Holbrook mentioned in his comment, and I thank Brian for his information. And of course, just like Loki, it works really well for Ash when he's in his stealth mode. And here I'm running Mott for a survival run, and I'm using my Tellus Boltus as the main weapon, but I use the Pox to get rid of the nullifiers so that I could remain in the stealth mode. And at the same time, I could also get rid of a lot of the armor from the heavy gunners, especially when the survival mode becomes extended for a longer period of time. So the Pox turns out to be very useful under these conditions as a support weapon. So in the end, I found the Pox to be a very unique weapon. It's not the super damaging, do everything, kill everyone sort of weapon that maybe a lot of people dream about for their secondary. However, under certain circumstances, it turns out to be a very useful weapon and can support a lot of the other primary weapons that you may have, or melee weapons that you may have, or of course the abilities that a certain frame may have. And so this turns out to be very useful because of course if you can make all your other weapons or your frame that much stronger, longer, then I think that is a very useful purpose for any weapon, including the POC. Okay, well that's it for this video on the POCs, and I hope you found it somewhat informative anyway. And we thank you very much for watching the video. If you have any comments, please post them in the comment section below, and thank you in advance for your comments. It's always a pleasure to make these videos for you, and we will continue to make more Warframe videos in the future. So, of course, until the next time, we wish you all the best, and as always, Jaya, nice day everyone.